Welcome back to Untested Builds, where we figure out how to play as your favorite fictional characters in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Like and subscribe, we try to post a new build every week. Comment below to suggest your favorite fictional characters, and join the Patreon to vote in the current anime poll between Urza Scarlet from Fairy Tail, Gilgamesh from Fate, or Jotaro from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Today we're building Rogue, another X-Men who happens to be Southern. She's a bit on the emo side too, sometimes. Other times she's literally just Carol Danvers. We're not building Carol Danvers with a Southern accent though. We're building Rogue, a girl with the ability to absorb the psyche of another individual through physical contact. Sometimes she gets powers out of the deal, sometimes her personality gets overridden, and sometimes she can control it, but usually she can't. Sometimes she doesn't even need to touch her victims to drain them. In general, it's a pretty awful set of circumstances to be in, so let's figure out how we can be cursed just like Anna Marie. For our goals for this build, our physical touch is so bad it got our name added to a certain list, not that list, the mutant registration list. Second, turns out some people will be willing to let us hold hands so we can borrow their abilities for a bit. And third, not everybody is cool with that, but we still want their abilities too, so we'll take them by force if necessary. For our stats, we're starting with 18 dexterity. Pretty sure attacking with your open palm counts as an unarmed attack, and more AC means we can get close safely. 16 charisma. It's not easy making friends when you're a weirdo who wears gloves all the time, but Anna makes it happen in spite of that. 12 intelligence and wisdom. Picking up skills and being perceptive kind of comes with the territory when so many personalities have passed through your head. 10 strength. Who needs muscles when you can just take someone else's strength? And 10 constitution. See the above about strength. For our skills, we're legendary in thievery. We literally steal people's personalities. Legendary survival for all those years being a Bamf in the Savage Lands, and legendary occultism. Still not exactly sure where mutant powers fit in the casting traditions, but we're going occultism this time around. Master acrobatics and stealth to get in close for touch attacks. Master society and intimidation for dealing with the bigots, and expert deception for when intimidation doesn't work. Anna Marie is a human, but she's a mutant, so I think it'll make more sense if we actually talk about our level 1 ancestry feat before discussing our heritage. We're taking Adyabao, at least that's how I'm pronouncing it, meaning we get a +1 circumstance bonus to will saves against emotion effects, and critical success results on successes thanks to being descended from vampires who literally feed on emotions and psychic energy, making us a damn fear. Meaning we get low light vision and the negative healing ability. We'll take the street archer background since we're runaways to gain training in the lore of a city of our choice, and we get the pickpocket fee for free so that we can steal or palm a closely guarded object without taking the usual -5 penalty. Well, this is awkward, but if you couldn't tell by the stats and skills, Rogue is a rogue. Kind of anticlimactic, but it gives a lot of the things that we actually want eventually. For now, we get surprise attack, so any creature that acts after us is flat-footed to us during the first round of combat, as long as we roll either stealth or deception for initiative, and sneak attack, so whenever we successfully strike a flat-footed creature with an agile, finesse, or ranged attack, we deal an additional 1d6 of precision damage. We pick up a rogue's racket for even more ways to inflict flat-footed. Scoundrels make any foe that we successfully feint flat-footed to the end of our next turn, and flat-footed to our allies as well on a critical success. It's not really deception if your enemy just doesn't understand that your touch is literally deadly, but that's the angle we're going for here. For the enemies that do know what you're all about, Tumble Behind makes a foe flat-footed to our next attack until the end of our next turn whenever we successfully move through their square when using a tumble through action. Rogues also gain a skill feat at every level, and we're taking Ravening's Desperation, mostly because I like the irony of the feat name, but also because we're really good at being on our own. Whenever our hit points are lower than half of our max HP, we gain a +1 circumstance bonus to stealth and survival checks. That bonus increases to +2 if our health is less than a quarter of our max HP. Level 2 is where we really start our journey towards Rogue. The Streetwise feat gives us more runaway stuff, letting us use society in place of diplomacy to gather information in a settlement we're familiar with, and we can also use society to recall knowledge for the same information instantly but at a higher DC. Most of our abilities will come from a sorcerer dedication, specifically an aberrant bloodline sorcerer for occult spells. Daze lets us deal mental damage equal to our charisma modifier to a creature based on a will save, stunning the target on a critical fail, and then we have Chill Touch to deal 1d4 negative damage to a living creature based on a fortitude save, enfeebling them on a critical fail, and making an undead creature flat-footed for 1 round and forcing them to flee on a critical fail. Level 3 rogues gain deny advantage, so we're no longer flat-footed to hidden, undetected, or flanking creatures our level or lower, or to other creatures our level or lower using surprise attack. We'll take the Keen Follower feat to pick up a bit of know-how on the fly from our allies. Whenever we use the Follow the Expert exploration activity, we gain a +3 circumstance bonus if that ally is an expert in the skill, or a +4 if they're an expert. and we'll get some danger room training hours in with Recognize Spell to spend a reaction to identify a spell we can see the casting of, identifying it on a success, and getting a +1 circumstance bonus to our AC or save against that spell on a critical success. The tongue spell is still a bit far away for us, but in the meantime we can pick up multilingual in case your GM drops a party in an unfamiliar land and you need an extra language that you can just pick up from one of the locals. For our class feat, Cantrip Expansion lets us prepare additional cantrips during our daily preparations. We're taking Join Pass specifically so that we can touch a willing creature and for 1 round use their lore skills to aid in recall knowledge checks we attempt thanks to our allies' memories. Level 5 rogues gain weapon tricks for expert proficiency in simple as well as rogues weapons, which is basically all of our skin. And whenever we critically strike a foe with an agile or finesse weapon, we also apply the critical specialization effects of that weapon. For unarmed attacks, they get slowed 1 unless they pass a fortitude save, so that actually checks out for rogue. Our lineage finally starts making more sense with Feed on Pain to gain temporary hit points for 1 minute as a reaction whenever we deal mental damage equal to half the amount of the damage we deal. Right now that's just days, but that's not really a bad deal since we can cast it literally whenever we want. For our skill feat, Quick Coercion lets us coerce a target after only 1 round of conversation instead of 1 minute. Have you seen X-Men Evolution? Coercing goons is like half of rogue screen time. We're taking criminal connections, whether that's old connections from when we were a villain or new baddies our hubby introduced us to. We can use our society to arrange a meeting with the figure in the underground world, not the actual underworld. Our half-brother is dealing with that stuff, like the criminal underworld, Thieves Guild and Assassin's Guild type stuff. For our class feat, basic sorcerer spellcasting gives us a 1st and 2nd level spell slot for more occult spells. Bane does bad things to people who get too close. Everyone within 5 feet of us who fails a will save takes a -1 status penalty to their attack rolls as long as they stay in the area. And if we've actually learned how to control our powers, we can spend an action each turn to increase the emanation of the effect by an additional 5 feet. Umbral Extraction is what lets us finally steal powers directly. Once we cast this spell, we can use the steal action to take a level 1 spell from a target on a success and a level 2 spell on a crit, and we deal 1d4 times the level of the spell we steal of mental damage to the target. Then if we want, we can cast the spell we stole as a shadow spell and use their own abilities against them. Level 7 rogues gain evasion for master reflex saves and critical success results on regular successes, vigilant senses for master perception proficiency, and weapon specialization for 2 extra flat damage on our expert weapon attacks. We'll take the fleet general feat for 5 extra feet of movement speed so we can close the distance for those steal attempts. For our skill feat, Kip Up lets us stand from prone without triggering reactions. Level 8 basic sorcerer spellcasters gain a 3rd level spell slot. Vampiric Touch forces a fortitude save on a living creature, dealing 6d6 negative damage and granting us temporary hit points equal to half the damage dealt for 1 minute. We'll take the Catfall feat to ignore 50 feet of distance when determining fall damage thanks to our master acrobatics. We're kind of just a normal human until we steal an ability, so we spend a lot of time focusing on our mobility and training. For our class feat, Loner Spell lets us borrow a prepared spell of 3rd level or lore from an ally that they help us prepare during our daily preparations. We can cast the spell as normal at any point during the day using our class DC for the spell's DC or our class DC -10 for the spell attack roll. Level 9 rogues gain debilitating strikes to inflict a -10 foot speed penalty or the enfeebled condition until the end of our next turn as a free action whenever we hit a flat-footed enemy and deal damage. We also have great fortitude, increasing our fortitude saves to expert proficiency. For our skill feat, Underground Network lets us use our society modifier to gain information from the underbelly of a settlement we've established a network in. For our ancestry feat, we turn to that Southern Vampire Charm with Nocturnal Charm to gain a +1 circumstance bonus to deception checks to lie and diplomacy checks to gather information or make an impression with other humanoids. We'll pick up Bloodline Breath to give us an extra 1st level spell slot for now, but it'll pick up more soon, and Terrifying Resistance to gain a +1 circumstance bonus to saving throws against spells cast by targets we've demoralized in the past 12 hours. We tend to know exactly what kind of tricks our recurring foes come up with thanks to our abilities. Level 11 rogues gain Rogue Expertise for expert rogue class DC, meaning more powerful loner spells. The quick contacts feat means we only need to spend a day of downtime to establish those underworld connections in a new area, and Incredible Initiative gives us a permanent +2 circumstance bonus to all of our initiative rolls, no matter what skill we're using for initiative. We'll take the quick recognition feat to use our recognize spell ability against occult spells as a free action once per round, and expert sorcerer spellcasting grants us a 4th level occult spell. Umbral Graft works similar to Umbral Extraction, except we can steal an active spell affecting the target and cast it on ourselves or an ally for the remaining duration. Like Quicksilver's Longstrider or Toad's Jump or Magneto's Airwalk, I don't know who you're fighting, just take their stuff. Taking innate spells is up to the GM fiat, but hopefully you aren't playing with the literal fun police. Level 13 rogues gain master tricks for master proficiency in all of our weapons, light armor expertise for expert unarmored defense and light armor, incredible senses for legendary perception proficiency, and improved evasion increases our reflex saves to legendary, gives us regular fails on critical fails, and half damage whenever we would fail on a reflex save. We'll get rid of the weird part of our heritage with Daywalker to lose the negative healing ability and gain health from positive effects like normal whenever we are in direct sunlight. And we'll take Bizarre Magic to increase the DCs to recognize occult spells we cast by 5. Level 14 Expert Sorcerer Spellcasters gain a 5th level spell slot for Mariner's Curse to force a will save on a creature in touch range, giving them Sickened 1 on a success, Sickened 1, and they can't reduce the condition below 1 until the curse is removed on a failure, and they get Sickened 2 with the same restriction on a critical failure. Also, if they're sickened and out at sea, they also get slowed 1 for reasons. Maybe we can't steal reactions, but we can certainly stop them. The reactive interference class feat lets us use our reaction to disrupt a reaction being used by an adjacent enemy automatically if their level are lower, and on a successful attack roll if their level is higher. For our skill feat, we'll take Hobnobbers to gather information in half the usual time. We might not be the brains of the outfit, but we've got some pretty decent street smarts, as long as no one compares us to Gambit, that is. Level 15 rogues gain double debilitation to apply both of our debilitations whenever we successfully damage a flat-footed enemy, since all of the bad things are supposed to happen when we touch someone. Greater weapon specialization increases our flat damage on our master proficiency attacks from 3 to 6. And for our skill feat, Swift Sneak lets us sneak at our full movement speed for the classic sneak feint face touch we're known for. We'll take the toughness feat for even more survivability since we're up close and personal most of the time, and our temporary HP can only go so far. We get extra max HP equals to our level, and we reduce our DCs of our recovery checks to 9 plus our dying condition value. Level 16 Expert Sorcerer Spellcasters gain a 6th level spell slot. Feeble Mind lets us potentially permanently remove a creature's psyche, forcing a will save, giving them Stupefied 2 for 1 round on a success, Stupefied 4 on a failure, and permanently makes their Charisma, Intelligence, and Wisdom modifiers -5 on a critical failure. Poor Carol, she gets her mind back eventually, but it was a bit of a journey. Legendary Thievery lets us steal even closely guarded items by spending a minute and taking a -5 penalty to the check, but this is really just a prerequisite for Steal spell, so we can use our Legendary Thievery to steal a random spontaneous or prepared spell of 8th level allure from a target that we can cast before 1d4 rounds, using our class DC for the saving throw and our class DC -10 for the spell attack roll. Level 17 rogues gain Slippery Minds for master will saves and critical success results on regular successes. The Symphony of Blood Damper feat lets us cast Vampiric Exsanguination once per day as an innate divine 7th level spell to deal 14d6 negative damage to creatures in a 30-foot cone based on a Fortitude save, gaining half the total amount of damage as temporary HP that lasts for 1 minute. We spent 16 levels surviving on the streets and in villain mutant circles, but now we're going to survive in the toughest area on the planet. The Forager feat means we automatically succeed on survival checks to subsist, and since we're a master in survival, we can provide for up to 16 creatures, meaning we can have not 1 but 2 full teams in the field with us until Xavier rounds up a 3rd team to come bail us out of trouble. We'll pick up Natural Medicine so we can use our nature skill in place of medicine to treat wounds so long as we're in a natural setting, and we gain a +2 circumstance bonus to the check at the GM's discretion. Master Sorcerer Spellcasting gives us a 7th level spell slot that we can use for another Vampiric Exsanguination every day. Level 19 rogues gain Light Armor Mastery for master proficiency in light armor and unarmored defense, and Master Strike to force a Fortitude save when we strike a flat-footed enemy, enfeebling them on a success, paralyzing them on a fail, and our choice of paralyzing and knocking them out, or killing them outright on a critical fail thanks to a literal kiss of death. All that extra vitality we've drained makes us harder to kill with Die Hard, so we die at dying 5 rather than dying 4. For our skill feat, Planar Survival lets us survive even on planes we normally couldn't, and the ability to pass checks to reduce environmental damage, which doesn't really make sense until you look at our last level of feats. For our capstone feat, Cross-Blooded Evolution lets us add a spell from a different casting tradition to our repertoire. We're dipping into the Divine list to cast Angel Form to tap into those Captain Marvel abilities for a minute. We gain a Fly Speed, 40 temporary hit points, Dark Vision, and a melee fist attack that deals 2d6 plus 12 bludgeoning damage plus 1d6 good damage, and a range attack that deals 1d6 plus 12 sonic damage plus 1d6 good damage, and giving the target deafen 1 on a critical hit. For our final skill feat, Aerobatics Mastery gives us a +2 circumstance bonus to maneuver in flight checks. Check out the list to see what all you can do with that, but let's just say that pilot training we totally went through is definitely going to pay off. But now that we're level 20, let's look at the pros and cons of this build. For starters, it's really hard to make a bad rogue. Even unarmed and without our spell stealing shenanigans, we can just run in, feint, or tumble through and deal our sneak attack damage and apply double debilitations with an unarmed attack. We have a plethora of ways to get temporary hit points thanks to our vampiric spells and abilities, but we also have spell stealing shenanigans. The umbral spells gives us huge versatility in encounters. Most enemies aren't prepared to defend against their own spells, let alone the fact that most encounters are usually balanced with enemies actually getting to use their spells in mind. Of course, that only matters if we're actually fighting foes with spells. For cons, we won't always be fighting creatures with spellcasting abilities, and even when we are, we can't always control what we gain from them. The other elephant in the room is that steal spell is kind of lackluster. For feat, we invest 2 skill feats, 2 class feats, and 3 skill increases into taking a minute to steal a spell, and being limited to 1d4 rounds to actually use the spell really hurts outside of some very niche circumstances. If I was running a game and someone actually had this, I would look into letting them use the 2 manipulate actions and the -5 penalty from pickpocket to steal a spell, and then limit it to once per hour to keep it balanced as basically an extra few umbral extractions per day. Or keep it as is and remove the 1d4 round restriction so we can essentially absorb an NPC's entire spell list, provided we can keep them unaware or incapacitated while we do our thieving. But that's just us trying to make the best of a huge limitation. Steal some spells, absorb some health, and deal a bunch of touch damage while flying around like Goku. Thanks for tuning in to another build. If you're new here, why not subscribe? We try to post a new build every week. And if you want to support the channel directly and decide what we build next, join the Patreon to vote in the current anime poll between Urza Scarlet, Gilgamesh, or Jotaro. And until next time, take care, stay safe, and play more Pathfinder.